mission backfired.
You look at the Washington Post or the New York Times, I can never get a good story. I mean, you look at this horrible thing that took place today, it's really, is it subversion? Is it treason? The latest act of resistance is the op-ed published in the failing New York Times. For the sake of our national security, the New York Times should publish his name at once. Unelected deep state operatives who defy the voters to push their own secret agendas are truly a threat to democracy itself. I think it's backfired. Seriously, people that don't exactly dig us and they don't exactly like me, they're fighting for us.
Meanwhile, you have these multiple high-level White House officials stepping forward to say it was not me, and the list is long. Vice President Pence, Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley. See everybody on screen there, and a lot more from the cabinet and beyond.
Griff Jenkins is live in Washington. So, Griff, who is it?
Sandra and Bill, I wish I knew. That's what everyone wants to know. And the president is on the warpath to find out. But if you look at that list again of all those officials who voluntarily rushed out to deny it, that full screen is virtually the entire administration. Vice President Pence vigorously pushing back, saying the New York Times should be ashamed of themselves. Secretaries Mattis, Mnuchin, Nielsen, Ross, and the list goes on, all denying it. Secretary Pompeo had this to say.
They should not well have chosen to take a disgruntled, deceptive, bad actor's word for anything and put it in their newspaper. It's sad more than anything else. If you're not in a position to execute the commander's intent, you have a singular option, and it's to leave.
Even First Lady Melania blasted the writer, saying to the writer of the op-ed, "You are not protecting this country. You are sabotaging it with your cowardly actions." And President Trump, who is demanding the New York Times publish a name, was clearly furious last night in Montana.
It's a horrible thing. Even, you know the good thing about that? Even liberals that hate me say, that's terrible what they did. And it is really terrible. But it's going to be, sooner or later, it will be exposed.
Now, there have been suggestions of subjecting officials to lie detector tests, but there is no indication that will actually happen. So it could be days, months, even years before we find out. Remember, the infamous deep throat Mark Felt was quoted in a 1974 Wall Street Journal article denying that he was the one. It took 3 decades for that to come out.
All right,
Sandra?
so still a big question mark, Griff. So what are Democrats saying about this?
As you might imagine, they're seizing the opportunity. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a potential 2020 presidential hopeful, went on the attack, suggesting it's time to invoke the 25th Amendment, saying if people are being forced to covertly protect the country from the president, then it's time to remove them because it's a constitutional crisis. Now, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, she's relishing in the guessing game, had this to say.
It won't take long for us to find out who wrote it, who has denied it already. The vice president. That was my first thought.
Now, finally, the New York Times not commenting, and they have the right to protect that source for as long as they like. Sandra?
All right, well, that's the way it is at 9 a.m. on this Friday morning. Thank you very much, Griff Jenkins.
I want to bring in Michael Anton, former national security official under President Trump. You worked in the West Wing. Day to you. A lot to get over, Michael, and good morning to you. You think this is a soft coup attempt? Please explain.
It's looking that way. I mean, essentially, this is a person. Keep in mind, when people say deep state, they mean the career civil service, right? The people you can't hire or fire who are always there. Whoever this person is identified him or herself as not a career civil servant, but an appointee of the president. They're saying, I was appointed by this president, so therefore I was appointed to implement the agenda on which he was elected, and I'm thwarting it. I'm trying to stop it. Now, that's about the definition of anti-democratic. It seems to me that there's a certain class of people in Washington who will stop at nothing to thwart what the president's trying to do and to overturn the results of the 2016 election. I do agree with something I heard on your show just now, which is the president said, he says he thinks this backfired. I think that's right. It's so brazen to have an appointee of the president write in the New York Times, I am not doing what the president says. I'm actively doing the opposite of what the president says, that it's going to turn off a whole lot of people, even people who didn't vote for President Trump and don't support his agenda. That's just too far for, I think, the majority public opinion.
Why do you go under anonymous when you make the comment that you think this person desperately wants to be identified?
I think this person, My speculation is this person wants to be identified only at the right time, only when he or she is out of the administration, however they, whatever the circumstances of their departure are. They want to be identified so that they can be welcomed back into, polite Washington opinion that's very anti-Trump. This person can then say, please let me rejoin Washington society. Please let me get a job somewhere. Please let me back into normal politics. Because I think what some establishment types are worried, they're worried about their reputations with their former friends. And there's a lot of, as I say, there's a lot of anti-Trump sentiment in Washington, and I think some people are sort of desperate to be welcomed back into the fold.
So
that's my suspicion.
Your theory is that this person will come forward then at some point?
I think this person will eagerly raise his or her hand and say that was me, and hope that they get a lot of hosannas and praise for doing so. Yeah, so that's my prediction.
There's another big story happening this week, and Bob Woodward's book is out. He does an interview on CBS on Sunday. He does NBC on Monday. Here's what the president said in a tweet about the book. Coming up here in a moment. I don't mind when they write a book and they make lies because it gets discredited, he writes. It's coming. Stand by. The last one, we discredit all of them because it's just lies. But I tell you, when somebody writes and you can't discredit because you don't know who they are, usually you'll find out it's a background that was bad. It may not be a Republican. It may be a conservative. It may be a deep state person that's been there a long time. That's what he's saying right now about the piece. There are those who believe that this is coordinated. The New York Times piece, the Bob Woodward book. Do you buy into that theory about coordination?
I've read the theories. I think they're plausible. So, I couldn't say at this point, but it's plausible. What I will say, I agree with something that Ari Fleischer, whom I worked with in the Bush administration, that he said on Fox, and he's also said on Twitter. He and I both worked with Woodward a little on some of the books that Woodward wrote about the Bush administration. And I agree with Ari that Woodward doesn't make stuff up. If it's in his book, somebody told him, and he's accurately reporting what he was told. The problem with these books is who are the sources, who talks and for what purpose. And, the book isn't out, but we did read a long excerpt or a summary of it in the paper earlier this week, and it described one of the meetings that I know I was in. And it was sort of half accurate and half wrong. It described the president being very concerned about strategy in Afghanistan and talking about going to Walter Reed and seeing soldiers who had lost limbs in Afghanistan. And really, the president was pressing his commanders very hard, saying, what are we doing there? This is America's longest war. What are we accomplishing? Our guys are dying. They're coming home without arms, without legs. I want a very clear justification before I agree to anything. Now, in the story, that's spun as very negative, as, the president ranting and raving. Well, I was in that meeting, and what I saw was the president asking the questions that I think every American wants their president to ask. If we're going to commit troops to battle, if we're going to risk our soldiers' lives, there ought to be a very good reason. There ought to be a clear strategy. There ought to be an objective. And he was pressing his commanders to give him that information, which I think is his job. And he had every right to do it, and that's what we want him to do.
Last question. You've spoken to Woodward then. Have you spoken to him about this book?
No, not about this book. Well, I was referring to the Bush 43 administration, which did cooperate with Bob Woodward's books, but the Trump administration very early on made the decision not to. But that just means that when officially an administration decides not to cooperate, that the only people who are talking are the people who aren't really authorized to talk, and they're going to have a particular spin and angle. That's my point, and that's what...
Got it. Yeah. Michael, thank you so much. Michael Anton from Washington, D.C. Thanks. Covered a lot there. Sandra.
Well, the final day of confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh about to get underway. The political fireworks on full display yesterday, with Senator Cory Booker vowing to lay it all on the line over documents he claimed were classified.
I'm going to release the email about racial profiling, and I understand that the penalty comes with potential ousting from the Senate. And if Senator Cornyn believes that I violated Senate rules, I openly invite and accept the consequences. The emails that are being withheld from the public have nothing to do with national security.
Running for president is no excuse for violating the rules of the Senate or of the confidentiality of the documents that we are privy to.
I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. This is about the closest I'll probably ever have in my life to an I am Spartacus moment.
Chief Congressional Correspondent on Capitol Hill, Mike Emanuel. Mike, was all of that necessary?
Sandra, evidently not. The attorney handling former President George W. Bush's records telling Fox, quote, "We cleared the documents last night," being Wednesday night, shortly after Senator Booker's staff asked us to. We were surprised to learn about Senator Booker's histrionics this morning because we'd already told him he could use the documents publicly. In fact, we have said yes to every request made by the Senate Democrats to make documents public. Senator Booker later defended the drama while a senior Republican sounded irritated.
Senator Booker doesn't think the rules apply to him, but if every senator operated as if they were a law unto themselves, then we wouldn't be able to function. And I think it's important to the country that we function and that senators follow the same rules that everybody else does.
Number one is they released those documents after I had already read for them and broke their sham of a rule. And if you look at what I'm doing all day today, I continue to release committee confidential documents.
A number of Republican senators think Booker's presidential ambition got the best of him. Sandra?
Well, it was another marathon session for Judge Kavanaugh. Any fireworks?
Well, a California Democrat went after Judge Kavanaugh on the issue of special counsel Robert Mueller. She tried to get Kavanaugh to agree to recuse himself on those matters.
Will you commit to recusing?
The independence of the judiciary requires that I not commit to how I would decide a particular case. I believe those were situations that were required recusals.
Kavanaugh is now done. Today's session will be about those opposed and those in favor of his confirmation. Sandra?
Mike Emanuel, what a week on Capitol Hill for us this morning. Thank you very much, sir.
Yesterday was a bit of a surprise when we were watching it together. We'll see if there are surprises today coming up.
We will indeed. And a lot more guests coming up on that as well.
Some of Cory Booker's colleagues are reacting to an explosive hearing, arguing that his ambitions for the White House got the best of them.
I've known Cory since I got to Washington. That's not the Cory Booker that I know. That is someone trying to position himself as the front runner so he can take on Donald Trump.
Well, does Trey Gowdy have a point? We'll talk to Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell and that coming up in a few moments.
And in the wake of that anonymous new New York Times op-ed, Senator Elizabeth Warren is urging President Trump's cabinet to take dramatic measures to remove him from office. Governor Mike Huckabee has something to say about that. He will be here live to react next.
Also, there is breaking news on the Syrian matter. The U.S. warning of another potential chemical attack as three nations sit down for a high-stakes summit. That is Iran and Russia and Turkey, all in the room at this hour as we speak. The details on that conversation ahead.
Fox News Alert, it has been nearly 4 years since the massive hack against Sony Pictures Entertainment. The Department of Justice now charging a North Korean computer programmer. The Treasury Department says Park Jin-hyuk engaged in significant activities undermining cybersecurity through the use of computer networks or systems against targets outside of North Korea. On behalf of the government of North Korea or the Workers' Party of Korea, tens of thousands of emails and other information were leaked.
If senior administration officials think that the President of the United States is not able to do his job, then they should invoke the 25th Amendment.
Senator Elizabeth Warren with a stated position after that New York Times op-ed. She says if those in the West Wing believe the president needs special handling, there is a constitutional option to remove him from office. Big debate on that. Former Arkansas Governor, Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee. How you doing, Governor? Good day to you. It's good to have you back. Did you brush up on your 25th Amendment, Governor?
Yeah, and I wondered, how did Elizabeth Warren ever teach law at Harvard if she is this off the rails when it comes to the invoking of the 25th Amendment? You've got some anonymous, gutless coward who makes a deal with the New York Times to run some op-ed that should never have been run. It's irresponsible and reckless. They run it, and suddenly Elizabeth Warren is ready to invoke the 25th Amendment, which means that the vice president and a majority of the cabinet would have to believe that a president is no longer capable of conducting his business. Now, this is a guy who just last night got up and made an hour-and-a-half speech without notes. This is a person who outworks most of the people around him who are half his age. I've been on the campaign trail with him, Bill. Nobody can keep up with him. And to say that he is unable to carry out his functions, I mean, the Democrats, I know they think their Mr. Smith goes to Washington. They're acting like Mr. Magoo goes to Washington. It is becoming a laughingstock to see them this frantic to try to get rid of the president.
Just to borrow a phrase here, unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, as apparently what the 25th Amendment says, the vice president takes over. You know, she sent out an email to her followers saying you can go to my website and sign up if you want to follow along. Sounds to me like that's a fundraiser, sir.
It's all fundraising. What Cory Booker did yesterday, which he embarrassed himself. He thought he was Spartacus. It was more like a scene from Psycho. This kind of stuff is all about fundraising and running for president. It's not about responsible governing. And I wish that they would stand back and realize that if they want to have a great blue wave, the best way to do it is to act like adults and act responsibly, but they're not. If the president was in a coma, then you would invoke the 25th Amendment. This is clearly a president who is nowhere near a coma. I'm sure they wished he would sometimes sleep more, but he's up all day and all night, and he's working hard for the American people, and the results are showing. I don't know what in the world they think they would impeach him for or invoke the 25th Amendment for. Do they want to roll back the economic progress? Do they want to roll back the better situation of security? These people have lost their minds.
He wakes up in the Dakotas today. Rand Paul had a clever idea. Here's his quote. He said, I think it's not unprecedented for people with security clearances to be asked to whether or not they were revealing things against the law under oath and also by lie detector. You think that's a good measure for Washington, D.C.?
Well, it's tragic that it has to come to that. The best thing is to employ people of honor and integrity. The person who wrote that op-ed had neither. I would love to find out who it is. They need to be frog marched across Washington and taken to the Potomac and tossed in. Because they basically, it's not just about being disloyal. It's trying to undermine a constitutionally elected president. And, you know, I make some jokes about it, but the truth is, Bill, this is a real serious issue when you have someone who anonymously wants to undermine an elected president. What is equally disturbing is that you have a newspaper, the old gray lady, whose skirt this guy's hiding behind, or girl, and somehow they think it's okay to be a part of something like this. That ought to be disturbing to genuine journalists, and the New York Times is proving they're not.
Well, that would be quite a video, huh? On a Friday, a frog march in Washington.
Yes, it would.
Off to the swamp we ride. Thank you, Governor. We'll talk soon. Mike Huckabee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
Breaking news on the U.S. economy. The monthly jobs report is out for August, and once again, the labor market is looking strong. We will break it down for you.
Also, there is no stopping the latest fire in Northern California. The flames shutting down a major freeway. More on how the relentless flames and the fires are taking a toll on that state yet again.
It's been a long summer. It's been a long fight. Yeah, we've been everywhere from the car to the well back to the Mendocino complex. Now we're here.
Now from the economy, your money. Labor Department releasing new jobs numbers for the month of August. Unemployment holding steady, 3.9%, still below 4. It's a strong number. Businesses adding about 200,000 new jobs. Here's what President Trump said about the economy last night when he was stumping in Billings, Montana.
Thanks to Republican leadership, our economy is booming like never before in our history. Think of it, in our history. Nobody knew this was going to happen.
Numbers are pretty good. Charles Payne's going to break them down next hour, too. And Charles has been very, very bullish on this economy for some time.
And he's going to be hot on the change in wage growth because he's certainly been watching that number. But it was overall a pretty good number and a good reflection of the U.S. economy. Construction jobs added were very strong as well.
Keep that number below 4, right at 4. You got a pretty good argument come November, so we'll watch that.
Another good one. All right, Fox News Alert. One of the busiest highways in the country shut down. I-5 in California closed near the Oregon border as the Delta fire gains strength. It's one of several that have ravaged the state in recent months. Now there are at least $1 billion in property claims. William Lajeunesse is live in Los Angeles with more details on this. William?
Well, Sandra, there are 16 new fires burning this morning in Northern California. In this one, the Delta fire is the worst. Tripling in size yesterday. 0% contained, human-caused,
accident or arson, we don't know yet, but it started in the Shasta National Forest near the Oregon-California border. Now, this is no brush fire. This is heavy timber, a dense forest at a very high elevation, 8,000 feet, meaning it's difficult to get any hand crews inside. Evacuation orders are in effect as helicopters and firefighters try to protect life and property.
You know, I've been evacuated for fires as well, and a little further south, and we know what it's like to have to leave and come home and hopefully have something there. And we want to make sure these guys have something to come home to.
So this map shows the national fire risk based on weather, moisture in the fuels, humidity. High winds and high temps today do not look good on the Delta fire, but as you can see, it's pretty quiet nationally. No new large fires in the Rockies, the Great Basin, or Southern California, meaning firefighters and aircraft are available for the Delta fire.
And William, this fire's been hard on the trucking industry.
Yeah, you know, I-5 is the major trucking route from Canada to Mexico. It runs down the spine of California, and right now it is closed, forcing truckers to take a break or a dangerous 2-hour detour. Wednesday, a dozen got caught on the highway. No injuries, but several big rigs were destroyed.
The North State had so many fires this year, we've had a lot more closures and a lot more detours.
About 55 miles out of the way rather than just coming straight down Interstate 5.
So as you know, Sandra, fires are driven mostly by terrain and Mother Nature. Right now, big picture, we're in the middle of wildfire season, and it's pretty good. No Santa Ana winds, but we have 2 months to go. Cross your fingers. Back to you.
We will. William Lajeunesse, thank you.
Mentioned this a moment ago. Breaking news on this crisis in Syria. Watch this story now. The U.S. warning of another potential chemical weapons attack. Right now, the leaders from Russia and Iran and Turkey are meeting on this. So details on that in a moment.
Meanwhile, as the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings head into their 4th day, critics are accusing some Dems of trying to use the event as a stepping stone to become their party's nominee for the White House. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell is here to react.
What I've watched over the last couple of days was a bunch of people who want to be the nominee in 2020, and it's sad. The shame of it all to me is that is what ambition and presidential politics can do to otherwise reasonable people.
I'm going to release the email about racial profiling, and I understand that the penalty comes with potential ousting from the Senate. And if Senator Cornyn believes that I violated Senate rules, I openly invite and accept the consequences. This is about the closest I'll probably ever have in my life to an I am Spartacus moment.
The final round of confirmation hearings for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh getting underway right now on Capitol Hill. And it comes a day after Senator Cory Booker, as you just saw there, dared Republicans to expel him from the Senate for releasing classified documents that Republicans say were already cleared for release. Congressman Trey Gowdy reacting last night on the story.
I've known Cory since I got to Washington. That's not the Cory Booker that I know, that I watched on television. And the shame of it all to me is that is what ambition and presidential politics can do to otherwise reasonable people. That was a shame of it to me. That is not the Cory Booker that I discussed criminal justice reform with. That is someone trying to position himself as the front runner so he can take on Donald Trump.
My next guest is a Democrat who sits on the House Judiciary Committee, California Congressman Eric Swalwell. Congressman, good to see you on this Friday morning.
Good morning.
All
You
right,
too.
so we just watched and listened to that together. What did you think of that display by Cory Booker?
He was doing his job. And, you know, I would take Trey Gowdy seriously if you could show me the clips back in 2015 and 2016 when he was attacking Rand Paul for filibustering on the Senate floor, who was a presidential candidate, or attacking Ted Cruz for shutting down the government when he was a presidential candidate. This is not what he did back then, and so this is just an effort to undermine.
He touted this release of documents, Cory Booker, that was already cleared for release, and he called it a Spartacus. He was referring to it as his Spartacus moment.
What I don't understand is why any of the documents were ever withheld. It was, I think, confusing for the American people as to why a document on racial profiling was withheld at all. And we still, of course, know that 90% of the writings of Brett Kavanaugh have not been turned over. And I think Senator Booker was trying to highlight that.
Do you see Democrats using this as a moment in some of these cases, potential runs for the next presidential election? Do you see them putting themselves on display and potentially hurting your party by doing so?
Well, we are looking at, who is going to be our nominee in 2020, and these individuals like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and others have to make big decisions and, demonstrate their judgment. And what I saw was Kamala Harris put the screws to the judge about prior individuals he talked to about the Mueller investigation. She also talked about his views on same-sex marriage. Cory Booker brought up an issue of racial inequality in America and asked the judge about that and prior writings on that. So if they're doing their job and showing that they're doing a good job, I don't see it as an insult to say, oh, you have ambitions for higher office and you're doing a good job in the audition that you have to show the American people.
All right, well, the Kavanaugh hearing process continues today. He is not actually present, but some witness panels, as you can see, the chairman, Chuck Grassley, he gavelled in a few moments ago. The witnesses are being sworn in. These are live pictures that you are seeing on Capitol Hill right now. But going back to how this could potentially be backfiring for your party, the president suggested just that last night in his speech. Watch this.
Extreme liberals. I mean, I'm talking about serious liberals, many of whom you're watching attacking Judge Kavanaugh and looking like fools, frankly, looking like fools. He's doing really well, but do you believe the anger and the meanness on the other side? Sick. It's sick.
Your Republican colleagues in the House, Steve Scalise, suggesting or Democrats are embarrassing themselves. The president clearly showing how he sees this all playing out for your party. Was it worth it?
Well, Sandra, what he means is he's attacking the black senators. We've seen this before. He called Maxine Waters, a low IQ individual, and now he's talking about Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and calling them fools. We see that he only uses these types of.
I think he was referencing the display they put on in these hearings by objecting out of the gate, and then this document release.
Yeah. We've seen these attacks before where he attacks African Americans and then goes after their intelligence rather than their arguments or their line of reasoning, or tries to counter them with any ideas of his own. So again, I just see this as more racism by the president, and it's dog whistling that he's doing, but we should expect more of this.
Characterize what you have seen so far this week. It's been a long week, and here we are entering another day of these hearings. How has this gone?
Well, I see that we have the wrong judge for the wrong time, and I think Brett Kavanaugh is legally qualified, but he was chosen for the wrong reasons. And it was highlighted that he was not on Donald Trump's list until after the Mueller investigation was launched, and we learned that Brett Kavanaugh had writings that said that a president could not be subpoenaed criminally or civilly. And so we have a president who is more legally exposed than any president ever in history, who has picked a Bush administration appointee who he also has distanced himself with otherwise. And so to me, he wants Brett Kavanaugh on there because he wants to be above the law and for no other reason.
And to be clear, is a 2020 run in your future, Congressman?
Hey, we got to get through the midterms. Let's win the midterms first. I have a baby on the way, November 4th. So, I've got too many decisions to make in the next 2 months. Thank you, Sandra.
Congratulations in anticipation of that baby's arrival. Thank you very much, Congressman, for coming on America's Newsroom this morning.
Critical meeting happening now. The presidents of Iran, Russia, and Turkey meeting in Tehran to talk about the ongoing war in Syria. This is the U.S. warns there could be the opportunity to use chemical weapons yet again. U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley sending a strong message to Syria and its allies on that front.
We have a message for the Assad regime and anyone contemplating using chemical weapons in Syria. We want to take this opportunity to remind Assad and his Russian and Iranian partners, you don't want to bet against the United States responding again.
Kellogg live in London with more. Amy?
Hi, Bill. That meeting has just wrapped up, but President Putin really turned that warning around. He said that he believes the rebel groups in that last rebel stronghold of Idlib are planning their own, quote, provocations, and, Bill, that could include their use of chemical weapons. Now, the U.S. Secretary of Defense has said there is no evidence that Syrian rebel groups have chemical weapons. However, some prominent international organizations have concluded that certain Syrian rebel groups do have chemical weapons in their possession. Now, the Russian, Iranian, and Turkish leaders did not come up with any concrete roadmap for definitively ending the civil war in Syria. They also didn't come up with an immediate plan to avoid a full-scale assault on Idlib, which the Syrian government wants to retake control over. There are 3 million people in Idlib. Many of them are displaced from other parts of Syria, and among those are between 10 and 30,000 fighters belonging to terrorist organizations. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is urgently calling for a ceasefire and has said that an all-out assault on Idlib would be a disaster, but he was the only one saying that today. People in Idlib, meanwhile, are taking no chances. You can see them here, terrible pictures of them making improvised gas masks with coal and cotton. Russians have been conducting airstrikes in Idlib to prepare the ground for an invasion by Syrian government troops. Turkey, already with 3 million Syrian refugees and unwilling, possibly simply unable to take any more, has sent tanks to its border. Now, finally, Bill, the U.S. envoy for Syria has said the U.S. does have some intelligence suggesting that the Syrian army is, in fact, preparing for some sort of use of chemical weapons if there's a